Welcome to CEO Zone's Meet the Speaker series, where we focus on serving CEOs with proven keynote speakers, consultants, and what we like to call curated content partners unique to the larger CEO, public CEO, the billion and larger CEO. It's my privilege to have with us today Jeff Chatterton. He's the CEO of Checkmate Public Affairs. His firm specializing in helping good corporations when bad things happen. I'll add to that hopefully you engage with Jeff or his team before the bad thing happens. Jeff is an expert in high stakes crisis communication. He calms upset CEOs, shareholders, stakeholders, and communities by rebuilding trust after there's been an unfortunate event. Jeff works again with good companies, and the one thing I like about Jeff is he helps them tell the truth. Many times in a crisis, it's very easy to have a shareholder, a stakeholder twist the CEO's arm and want them to either make up what sounds true or cause a poor communication. So we're very glad that we're aligned with Jeff where he helps good companies tell the truth. To that end, Jeff is a keynote speaker, a crisis management consultant, a best-selling author, a father. He and his family live in Ontario, Canada. Jeff has served clients in places like Bali, South Africa, Ecuador, Canada, and of course the United States, just to name a few. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. You said, you would do the bio and I could do whatever I want, so I'll avoid making funny faces. But
Okay, well, we're glad we have you. It's been a pleasure to start to get to know you. I had a real fun time. As you know, we discussed your book already, but we're going to get into that just a little bit today. Leaders Under Fire, but the subtitle for our audience is very unique: The CEO's Survival Guide to Navigating Corporate Crisis. And again, we would highly recommend that our members or our YouTube audience would be engaging with Jeff and his team prior to the crisis. But sometimes things happen, and that's not possible. So we'll make sure you have his phone number, his email, all those things, but please get with them before you have a crisis or a reputation event. So you had a great bio. I shortened it down. I do a bad job at reading it, but what I saw was your clients and past clients say that you're a calm fixer, you're a war room technician, you're the reputation bodyguard. Typically, maybe the
I
fight
like
broke
that.
out in the back alley. You're the reputation bodyguard. You're the lightning strike specialist. So I guess Ben Franklin and you hang out together. And you're the calm in the storm to make sure the client does the right thing the right way after there's been an event. So now that I've pumped you all up, what do you really do?
Yeah. I I am a little bit of uh, you know the guy who comes into the boardroom and everyone kind of looks at me funny and they don't understand who exactly I am and what I do. But it's my job to pretty instantaneously build trust, and more importantly, to help the organization build trust with the stakeholders when it matters the most. The it's tricky sometimes. I think you nailed it. You talk about the truth. The truth is, it's a funny thing. The truth is a constant. It is the light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter what people say about it. It is unassailable. It is gospel. And I think everyone has different perspectives on the truth. And I think what happens, I like to think better of people, and I like to think that they they wish for alternative realities sometimes. They really wish that this boil water advisory wasn't about to happen, or that this product recall wasn't in place, or that we don't have to tell anyone about the fact that we've found trichloroethylene on our property, or you go on and on and on and on and on. And it's about finding the unassailable elements of truth and making sure that they are presented in a way that actually builds trust and builds credibility, even if the news isn't good. So,
Out of the Fortune 500, I know you're a global. You've been in tens of countries, tens of countries. I don't know how many countries you've worked in, but
last I counted, it was just shy of 40.
40. Okay, that's quite a few, and they're not all English speaking. I noticed, but at least as their first language. But out of the Fortune 500, to kind of hone in on U.S. Canada, let's say for a minute. How many of those Fortune 500 would you guess have either a CEO reputation event, which we can think of a few in our recent history in the news, and we can also think of where there's what I'll call a corporate crisis event, where just earlier this month, the U.S. steel plant near Pittsburgh that had the explosion, 2 people were killed, many were injured. Events like that, or in my past, I've actually been literally driving down the driveway of a plant when it exploded at a chemical plant, and people were killed at that plant. So, how often, kind of, are you rolling the dice as a CEO that
Oh,
if you don't have a plan, or how do you get there?
yeah, I think inadvertently, I think corporate leadership gambles with their future every day of the week. It's absolutely shocking how many organizations are out there, and I'm not a big fan of the written, static, old school crisis communications plan. I think a lot of folks like me, they sell the binder, they sell the plan, they it's a way to justify the absolutely huge bill that you send the client. Well, but here's a binder, right? I think there are better ways to prepare, quite frankly. I think there are better ways that are less intrusive. I like to say I can make just about any company absolutely crisis ready and camera ready and bulletproof if you give me about 72 hours. That doesn't factor in things like if you have a long and sordid history of lying to your stakeholders. Obviously, there's going to be some challenges here that we're going to have to overcome. But for the most part, you like to think that this isn't hard. It's amazing how many. There are reasons for it. I could get into it.
Yeah, that's fine. So out of 500, sooner or later, 450 of them, whichever one you want to pick, is probably going to have some type of.
Oh, I mean, if you take a look, see, I would argue that having a factory blow up isn't in and of itself a crisis. I work with a lot of major venues. The Staples Center in Los Angeles is a client of mine. Well, they're now Crypto.com Arena, but
Yeah.
I've worked with a number of Major League Baseball stadiums, venue, NBA, NHL, and I would tell general managers, if a meteorite comes out of the sky and destroys your left grandstand, right? You didn't suffer a crisis. What you have is a massive unplanned renovation, especially if everyone stands around and cheers. That's not a crisis. Where a crisis happens is when everyone gets upset. And where a crisis happens that you need to worry about is when everyone gets upset with you. Now you've got a problem. And that definition opens up a whole lot. Now you're talking about, hey, I need to tell an important business unit that we're going to have to lay off, go through a round of layoffs. But I still want to keep productivity high. It means making decisions about closing factories. It means having to admit to past wrongdoing. There's flippant answers in there, like what happens if you accidentally buy Coldplay tickets.
Shame.
Everyone's familiar with the stories and the highlights that are out there, but I like to say a crisis is anything that's going to happen that you hadn't planned for, that is making people feel at risk and upset with you.
Okay. So you gave some examples of crisis and your approach, because CEOs are tuned in. If they've listened now to the first 8, 9 minutes, they're interested in the topic. What's the right timing? What's the right approach? How do I
Oh,
engage with somebody like that?
that is one thing I drill into my clients. There is no substitute for speed. I can work with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I can fix. There are two or three things I can't fix. And the one that makes life incredibly difficult and unnecessarily incredibly difficult is the lack of speed. And you see it time and time and time again. I don't really want to talk about Coldplay concerts.
Hmm.
But if you take a look at that, only because it's the most recent example that everyone's familiar with.
Right.
The problem, obviously, the problem is that the CEO and the HR person were doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, and that's a given. The real problem they had was that it's very difficult to acknowledge that because corporate communications is sitting there going, well, am I going to write a news release that says my CEO is a jerk? Like there's a lot of inherent issues associated with the speed of response. But because they didn't respond, because the CEO didn't respond, now you've got 3 days of rumors and innuendo and scrutiny and allegations and it's just incredible what happens if you're not feeding the beast. If you're not your own spokesperson, someone else is going to be your spokesperson, whether you like it or not. The most most famous example, and it's old school, but it's a really good example. 1986, Challenger goes boom. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely shocking. Everyone can remember where they were if you're old enough when the Challenger blew up. It took NASA 4 hours to acknowledge that they had lost the shuttle. The entire world knew they had lost the shuttle, but it took them 4 hours. And in those 4 hours, we had everything from internal sabotage, acts of terrorism. Because Tom Brokaw and everyone else are filling the airways. They're going to find, they're going to talk, they're going to keep on going. They're going to fill that gap. They are going to feed that beast. And it took NASA 2.5 years before they could put another shuttle in the air because in the meantime, their credibility just tanked. If When Columbia blew up, it took them 19 minutes. They learned that lesson.
Mm. Unfortunately, they had to repeat that lesson.
Yeah.
Um, so, as a consultant, what's your approach and when you engage with a new board or a new CEO? How does that timing work? What do they do? How do they do it?
Yeah, I like to joke. It's a little bit like being a communications consultant, a therapist, and a priest all at once.
Okay.
There more than once I've had to go into someone's door or office and close the door and say, okay, no, look, tell me what's really going on. How can we fix this effectively? And I ask tough questions. Okay, you've said this, but that doesn't line up with what I've heard about this, or whatever the issue is, and that's a rough exercise to go through, especially when people don't necessarily have had the opportunity to build a rapport. Um, but it comes from a place of care. It comes from a place of understanding. It comes from a place of empathy and trying to understand what's important for me to remember. in a place like that is for a CEO who is dealing with a crisis. They're they've been gambling their future on this moment, and things are going weird, and it's scary. If you haven't been in that environment before, when the mayor is on line one and CNN is on line two, you don't want to have to try to figure this out on the fly. It is critically important that you understand exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it, and otherwise, I kind of like the analogy I offer is it's like getting the instruction manual on how to operate a parachute and then jumping out of a plane and reading it on the way down.
After you've counted to four, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So we're going to challenge you on your memory of your own book. Uh,
it's the book is 5 years old, so
well, I'll
this
try
could
to
be
lead the
interesting. All right.
witness. I'll try to lead the witness, right? But
Okay. Yeah.
sure. So, chapter 6 of your book, Jeff, talks about the danger of do it yourself crisis communications, and it's got a great little story. The guy's name happens to be Bill. Fortunately, it is not me. It's somebody that,
Bill gets fired at the end of the book.
yeah,
There's the
yeah, Bill gets
spoiler.
fired.
Yeah.
Which Bill's going to get fired at the end of the YouTube channel as well. But can you give us a little bit of why a CEO does not want to go into the crisis of a burning building, let's say, by themselves?
I
What
think at that point it's a perspective fight. Um, Remember when I said, there's a lot of things you really want to be true, and so you start looking for it, and you have your own biases and your own confirmation biases, and you're walking through a barn that's on fire, and you don't realize the oily rags sitting in the corner, or the cans of old gasoline that are just sitting on the ground because you don't want to see them. Um, and I'm speaking in analogies, obviously,
Yeah, yeah.
but I think this happens every day. I think organizations become nose blind to the smell of things that aren't going to smell right. When you anyone who's ever worked in sports knows what a locker room smells like, and it's not pleasant. But after a while, you don't smell it anymore. And I think that's what happens in corporations. They forget that they're smelly sometimes, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. That smell is a byproduct of hard work. That smell is a byproduct of commitment. That smell is a byproduct of people putting effort in their lives into whatever it is you are trying to accomplish. And I know I'm still speaking in analogies, but I think it really resonates for me, that sometimes you just need to understand what that smell is, and how to explain that to other people. And it becomes very, very difficult to do if you're not familiar with what is that's out there that's going on. I say the best spokespeople for an organization, aside from the professional spokespeople, are your skeptics. When people come to you and they ask really tough questions, when they say, "How come you're giving our children cancer?" You know, um, it's really easy to get annoyed. It's very easy to get upset. It's easy to take those people and dismiss them. That's about the worst thing you could do, because if you can answer that question with care, with empathy, with legitimacy, and actually build trust and dedication along the way, those people become by far and away your best spokespeople. Those are the ones that a month and a half later, when they hear someone else complaining, say things like, "You know what, I had the same concern, but I talked to Bill and this is what he told me." That does far more for your public credibility when you're dealing with a crisis or a risk issue than any sort of corporate spokesperson.
So I know this has happened to you many times, but give us a little analogy. Let's role play for a second. I'm the CEO. I have my attorney at my right hand.
Mhm.
You're at my left hand. How do we get the truth out in a way where the attorney says, "Oh, we can't tell them the truth because we're going to go to court someday, or we could potentially be sued, or we don't know how this might turn out." How do you help coach and consult that CEO who has two trusted advisors potentially telling them two different things? What's the
So if I'm doing my job right, I'm having that meeting with the attorney first, just to say, hey, look, we have the same end goal here. We want a client that's happy and profitable. What can we do to work within our limitations here? I have a need to ensure that the people who are upset and concerned are reassured. You have a need to protect the company's liability in a courtroom, but there's more than one courtroom out there, and I think when you come at those particular people with a place of respecting their legitimacy, respecting the need that they have to do a job, most good corporate counsel understand that. They understand. Look, it's one thing to win in a courtroom, but it means nothing if it bankrupts the company in the process. And the ones that don't recognize that don't tend to be in that position for very long. Um, it's not a position you want to be in. I've unfortunately I've seen that. I've seen that as well. I had a high profile case where the top official was accused of conflict of interest allegations. His lawyer advised him to shut up, say nothing. It was absolutely the worst thing he could have done. It absolutely destroyed his career. If he had come out and said, you know what, here's what I have done, here's what I have done, why I believe that I have done the right thing. Um, you know, that's there are certain things I can't talk about, we have an active court case, and that's the case. But I continue to serve the role with integrity, with respect, and humility. I think that he would have been far better served. But eh,
okay?
you can't win them all.
Yeah, okay. But you're there as a trusted advisor. So how fast, like one of these crises, which you don't call it, one of these events happen.
Hmm.
How fast does your team need to respond? Do you usually get a
So
call? Do you see it
oh,
on?
I would say that 99% of the time, actually, I'll be even more, probably more than 99% of the time, the situation is one that they saw coming. Test results have started to come back, and it looks like we may have listeriosis on one of our assembly machines. Um, we're getting phone calls from the FDA, and they're concerned about this. Like those are the sorts of things that are, like little red flags start firing off. Um, I in 25 years, I have had to drop everything and get on an airplane less than 5 times.
Hmm.
The you 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 kind of know stuff is gonna go weird, and if that's the case, oh, for heaven's sake, the sooner you can get a hold of me or one of my people, and we can start to build the conditions for victory.
Hmm.
Um, so much more effective. Every minute counts in an environment like that. When I have a day or three to get ahead of something, that line up the spokespeople, make sure that they know what the key messages are, make sure that you can how this is going to play out. How can we do this that in a way that's going to be positive? Every minute counts. So
Okay.
sooner is better.
Sooner is better. Okay. So I usually ask this question in the beginning, but we're here and I want to kind of go off topic a bit and get a little bit more into you because you seem very personable. I know you and I have met only through video prior to today. I read your book. I don't have a book to give you to read about me, so that's good. We saved you that time. But how did you get into this field and then get to become such a global player? What got you to where you are today?
So the standard joke in crisis communications is, how did you get into crisis communications? By accident.
Okay.
I was political. There's a much longer version of this story, but I was working for in Canada, the Minister of Environment, and we had a town. It was a little tiny, town of about 5,000 people, and 2,000 of them were sick, egregiously sick, from drinking municipal tap water that we discovered after the fact has been contaminated with E. coli 0157H7. It's bad. You don't want it. You definitely don't want it in your tap water. There was a number of failures that happened along the way in order to get into that place, but all of a sudden it was very quickly becoming the largest environmental crisis communication story in Canadian history. People started dying. The town police officer died. The town librarian died. It was awful, awful, awful story. And they put me on the ground to navigate and to deal with all of that because they thought I was from there. I wasn't. I was from a town about an hour and a half away that sounded similar, but in government work, that's all it takes. And a year of that, and I ended up working for the communications firm that was working for the town. And 1 year after that, 9/11 happened. We had a whole new round of crisis communications events that happened because of 9/11. And the business went kind of weird. And sometime in January, I got called into the office, and there was the HR person and the vice president. And I was like, "Oh, I know what this is. I get it. I had seen the writing on the wall." So they said, "Yeah, sorry, our revenues have tanked." I'm like, "No problem." So that was on a Tuesday. I had a job offer on Thursday, and my wife, God bless her, said, "Look, you've always wanted to do your own thing. We don't have a mortgage and we don't have kids. So if you're going to fail, go get this out of your system and go fail now." And 25 years later, I have a mortgage and kids and no wife, and I'm still here. So the rest is history. Yeah.
Okay. As we kind of bring this closer to a close, I'll say the CEOs that are out there, he mentioned 9/11. We happen to be going to do a webinar on September 11th at noon Eastern, a live stream where CEOs can literally ask Jeff questions. Maybe Chief Communication Officer joins the CEO on the webinar and we make it really hard. I'd love to see Jeff sweat a little bit, but we'll see how that goes on 9/11 at noon. But we certainly want to commemorate all the people that were lost and ensure that we do the right thing the right way, but we will be having that live stream on September 11th. So, and I think we're going to call that "Oh Crap, Now What?" Kind of like the hook and the tagline or the hook line or the bait, social media bait, how we're going to do that. So I'm going to skim down through due to time, and I want to confirm with you to the CEOs, well, how in the world would they get a hold of you? So your telephone number, your personal telephone number is 519-513-1053.
Yes.
Your website is checkmatepublicaffairs.com. While you don't have your own YouTube channel, you're a guest today on CEOzones.com. And when you go into YouTube and search your name, you've been the guest many times on many different podcasts. One of the ones I watched recently was all about now what, and
Hmm.
it was just a generic now what, and that particular host allowed you to talk about what you just did. So thank you very much. And then your LinkedIn profile is your name without a space in it, Jeff Chatterton. And then if all else fails, you can go to ceozones.com, our content partner page. Scroll down through the alphabetical, get to the C's, and sure enough, Chatterton will show up. You can click on it, and inside that second page will be his LinkedIn link, all his social media links,
Contact info. Yeah.
all your contact info. And if you're a member, an exclusive paid member of CEO Zones, our online community, Jeff is inside there. He has a little trophy next to his name because he is a content partner, and he shares content that CEOs find very usable, actionable, and hopefully before the fact. He shares twice a month in there as a minimum, and he may even be in that community and you get the chance to have a peer-to-peer discussion with him. That's up to you and Jeff at the time. But we really appreciate you taking time, Jeff. And I know that we need to get you ready because I believe it's football practice day at your house, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we are actually in a very narrow window where the summer league is just wrapped up, but school season starts in about a week. So thankfully we're okay for now. But yes, football's like a 9 month a year thing around here. Yeah.
Okay. Right up there with hockey, huh?
Yeah, yeah, we're a football family, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're one of the few. Don't tell the Canadian government; they'll take away my citizenship. But
All right. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. We appreciate it.
it's been awesome. Thanks, Bill.